The air inside the federal courtroom was heavy, thick with tension. It was a sealed chamber, isolated from the outside world, where no media could access, no leaks could tarnish the government's image. Only the faces of those who mattered, and those who were destined to be forgotten, remained. Today, that face was Emily Steele's, an ex-undercover agent, now at the mercy of a legal system that had betrayed her. Emily sat in the defendant's chair, her hands trembling slightly in the cold steel cuffs, her mind a storm of memories and emotions. The days of dangerous infiltrations, deadly missions, and heart-stopping risks seemed like a distant life, one that had been ripped away from her by the very agency that had once trusted her. Now she was facing charges that would strip her of everything: espionage, murder, and theft of classified intelligence. The prosecutor, an imposing figure with a voice like gravel, finished his statement. The evidence against Emily appeared insurmountable: surveillance footage showing her in a high-security facility she had never authorized access to, fingerprints found on a weapon used in a brutal assassination, and witness testimony from a person she had never met. Her court-appointed lawyer, a weary man with tired eyes, could do little more than offer a weak defense, his motions for access to critical evidence denied. Judge Martha Hennessy, her face set in stone, began reading the charges. Every word felt like a death knell in Emily's heart. There was no way out. She had no one to turn to. No allies, no backup. All that remained was the crushing weight of her fate. You stand accused of espionage, murder, and theft of classified materials. The evidence against you is clear, and your defense— The judge's voice trailed off as she glanced at Emily. Her eyes were cold, calculating. This court has no choice but to issue its verdict. Emily's throat tightened, her heart hammered in her chest, and the walls of the courtroom seemed to close in on her. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but she knew it was futile. There was no one to help her now. As the judge prepared to issue her verdict, something unexpected happened. The door to the courtroom swung open with a loud bang. The sudden intrusion disrupted the heavy silence. The doors banged against the wall as a figure sprinted into the room, a large, muscular Belgian Malinois, his dark eyes sharp and focused. His coat was a sleek brown, his muscles rippling with each determined step. The dog's presence was commanding, but it wasn't just any dog. This was Max, the one who had saved her life countless times. The dog she had rescued after he was deemed unfit for military service. The dog who had never once left her side, even in the darkest hours of her most dangerous undercover operations. Max's nose twitched in the air, scanning the room as though he had been trained for this very moment. He immediately locked eyes with a man sitting in the back of the room, Secretary of Defense Samuel Bishop. The dog's growl rumbled low in his throat, and his body tensed. Max took a step forward, then another. His eyes never left Bishop's, his growl deepening with each passing second. Emily felt her heart leap in her chest. She hadn't seen Max in years. He had been retired after the mission in Syria, after the trauma, after the violence. She had adopted him then when no one else would. She knew him better than anyone else, and she understood that look in his eyes. Max wasn't just growling, he was warning. Bishop's face paled. His hand instinctively moved to his side, as if he were about to draw a weapon, but he stopped. His gaze flickered briefly toward the judge before he quickly composed himself. Something was wrong, something that no one in this room could understand, not yet. The courtroom buzzed with confusion. The guards stationed at the door shouted commands, but Max wasn't moving. He remained fixed on Bishop. He didn't flinch, he didn't bark, he simply stared, his gaze filled with intent. The courtroom scene momentarily faded as Emily's mind drifted back. She remembered the day she had adopted Max. After his retirement, he was deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable for civilian life. He had been labeled a liability, and the military had wanted to put him down. Emily had fought for him, though. She had seen the loyalty in his eyes, the sharpness in his instincts, the power in his spirit. Emily had spent years working in high-stakes undercover missions. Max had been her partner on many of those operations, while his training made him an excellent tracker. His real skill was in his ability to sense danger before it arrived. Max's instincts were unparalleled. He could sniff out deception, sense a lie in an instant. He had saved Emily from certain death more than once, not through brute force, but by alerting her to the dangers lurking in the shadows. He was a protector, a fighter, and above all else he was loyal. And now here he was in the courtroom, still watching her, still protecting her. Max's actions weren't random. Emily's heart raced as she recalled a disturbing realization. Max had been acting strangely since the moment he was placed in the holding facility. During his stay there, he had shown an intense reaction to one person in particular, General William Harker. Harker, a high-ranking military official, had been involved in a covert operation known as Project Nexus. Emily had uncovered the operation, while deep undercover, but she hadn't been able to fully expose it. Project Nexus was an attempt to weaponize classified intelligence, to manipulate global power on an unimaginable scale. Emily had nearly uncovered the full extent of it, but she had been forced to flee when Harker learned of her intentions. He had set her up to take the fall for a murder she hadn't committed, using advanced biometric masking technology to erase any trace of his involvement. The moment Max had entered the courtroom, he wasn't just acting on instinct. He had sensed the truth. Harker was here disguised, masked by technology, but Max could see through it. Max had always been Emily's eyes when she couldn't see, her ears when she couldn't hear, and now he was telling everyone in that room the truth. As the tension in the room escalated, a tech specialist named Adam Foster, who had been working behind the scenes to uncover the conspiracy, burst into the courtroom. He carried a hard drive, his face grim. His fingers shook as he plugged it into a laptop, revealing a piece of surveillance footage that would change everything. It showed General Harker, not Emily, committing the murder she had been framed for. The footage was undeniable. The courtroom was in chaos now. The judge had no choice but to pause the proceedings as the evidence was revealed. The man who had orchestrated the entire conspiracy, General William Harker, had been exposed. Jason Carter, an old ally of Emily's from her FBI days, had managed to retrieve the evidence just in time. Harker's attempts to cover his tracks had failed. His involvement in the murder, his manipulation of classified intelligence, and his efforts to use Emily as a scapegoat were all laid bare for the world to see. The judge, stunned by the new evidence, immediately reversed Emily's sentence. The charges against her were dropped. The courtroom, once filled with the weight of her doom, now echoed with the shouts of justice being restored. But for Max, the battle was not yet won. Days later, Emily stood beside Max's hospital bed. The loyal dog who had fought by her side, who had never once wavered in his devotion, was slipping away. His injuries sustained during the operation were too much for his aging body to bear. Emily stroked his fur gently, her heart heavy with grief. Max had never sought glory. He had never asked for anything but to serve, to protect. And now, as he lay there, his tail wagging weakly, Emily knew she would never forget him. In honor of Max, a memorial statue was erected. The bronze sculpture stood tall beside a folded American flag, a tribute to a soldier, a partner, and a friend. Max had given his life to protect the truth, and in the end it was that truth that had saved Emily. The days following the courtroom revelation were a blur for Emily. The weight of the charges against her had been lifted, but there was no elation, no joy in her heart. She couldn't shake the image of Max, his loyal eyes and protective growls, standing by her side through it all. The case had been closed, and General Harker was arrested, but Emily's mind remained fixed on the friend she had lost. The world outside the courtroom had moved on. Media outlets that had once speculated about her guilt now reported her exoneration. The FBI offered her a reinstatement to the field, but Emily knew she couldn't go back. She had already served her country with her blood, sweat, and tears. The betrayal had cut too deep. No, she would never return to that life. Not without Max. Emily sat in a small, quiet cafe, the sunlight pouring through the windows, but there was no warmth in it for her. She looked down at the coffee in her hands, trying to focus on the simple comfort it offered. She had nothing left, Her world had been torn apart, and yet she was free. Her phone buzzed. A text message from Jason Carter, her old friend, appeared on the screen. "The evidence is in. Harker's corruption is going public. This is bigger than anyone thought. You were right all along." But Emily wasn't interested in accolades or recognition. The justice she had sought all those months, all those years, felt hollow without Max by her side. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic, a sterile reminder of the life that was slipping away. Emily stood in the doorway for a moment, taking in the sight of Max lying on the bed. He was still, too still. His once vibrant eyes now appeared, tired, but when he heard her footsteps, his tail gave a faint, slow wag. "Hey there, old friend," Emily whispered, her voice breaking as she moved toward him. Max's ears perked at the sound of her voice. He struggled to lift his head, his breathing shallow, but his eyes never left her. He recognized her, his partner, his protector. She was here. Emily sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his head. "You're a tough one, aren't you?" "Always were." Max's eyes softened as she spoke. He wasn't the same dog he had once been. His injuries from the operation had taken their toll. But there was something in his gaze, something that made Emily believe he still understood. He was still with her, still watching over her. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she leaned down and kissed Max's forehead. "Thank you for everything. You've saved me so many times, Max. Now you can rest." Max gave a weak bark, his tail wagging once more. It was as if he was telling her that it was okay that he had done his duty, and now he could go in peace. A nurse came in quietly, nodding her understanding of the moment. Emily gently held Max's paw, her fingers tracing the lines of his aging fur. Max's breathing grew more labored, and for a fleeting moment Emily was afraid she might lose him right there. But then, as if sensing her distress, Max gave one final soft bark. His eyes softened in a way that conveyed love, loyalty, and a quiet understanding of what had passed between them. And then, as the sun began to set, Max's eyes closed one last time, the weight of his duty now released. It was a few days later, when Emily stood before the memorial, her heart heavy with the loss of her partner, her friend. The statue of Max stood tall, his noble muscular form immortalized in bronze. His gaze, fierce and protective, seemed to watch over the American flag that lay beneath it, folded carefully into a perfect triangle. Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet pride. Max had given everything for his country, for her. Beside her stood Jason Carter, his face solemn. He was a true hero, Emily. One of the best. I don't think anyone will ever know just how much he did. "How much he saved," Emily replied, her voice thick with emotion. Jason nodded, his eyes filled with respect. "He was more than just a dog, wasn't he? He was your partner, your family." Emily took a deep breath, standing up straighter. She wiped a stray tear from her cheek, her hand trembling slightly. "I never would have made it through without him, not once." The crowd, which had gathered in reverence around the solemn memorial, fell into a hushed silence as Emily slowly stepped forward. Her every movement deliberate, she knelt before the base of the statue, carefully placing a bouquet of pristine white lilies upon it. The lilies were not just flowers. They were a symbol of purity, unwavering loyalty, and deep devotion, qualities that Max had embodied throughout his life and in his service. In their delicate beauty, they spoke of everything he had represented, everything he had been. "I promise you, Max," Emily murmured, her voice soft and filled with emotion, so quiet that only those closest to her could hear. "You'll never be forgotten, not by me, and not by anyone who truly knew you. You were the best of us." Her words carried a weight of promise, a vow that no matter how much time passed, Max's memory and his sacrifice would endure. From a distance, the mournful sound of a lone bugle echoed through the air, signaling the start of the ceremony. The notes faded into the wind. The American flag, which had once draped over Max's casket in a final tribute, was carefully lifted by a soldier. It fluttered in the breeze, its bold red, white, and blue standing in stark contrast to the quiet reverence of the moment, representing not just a country but the honor and sacrifice of a hero. In the background, the sound of taps drifted through the air, a solemn and heart-wrenching melody that marked the final farewell to a man who had never sought recognition, never sought fame. Max had only ever wanted loyalty, and he had given that loyalty freely to those he loved and served. And as Emily stood there, her heart heavy but full of peace, surrounded by friends, allies, and all those who had stood by Max's side in life and death, she felt a deep, profound sense of resolution. She had fought tirelessly for justice, fought with every ounce of her strength to clear his name, to ensure that the truth was known. She had fought for her partner, for the man who had stood by her through the darkest moments of her life. And now, as she stood at the memorial, she knew that she could finally at last say goodbye. The battle had been long, but this was the moment of closure, the moment where she could let go, knowing that Max's legacy would live on forever in the hearts of those who truly knew him. Weeks passed, and the world continued to move forward, as it always did, with its relentless pace indifferent to the struggles of any one person. Yet for Emily, everything had changed. She was no longer the same woman who had walked into that cold, intimidating federal courtroom, her body shaking with fear and uncertainty. She was no longer the woman wrongly accused and unjustly framed for crimes she had never committed. She had evolved into someone different, someone who had confronted the truth in all its painful clarity, who had faced the darkness that threatened to swallow her whole, and who, despite everything, had emerged from it all with newfound strength and resilience. Standing alone on a quiet hilltop, she gazed out over the vast expanse of the horizon, her eyes tracing the line where the sky met the earth. The sun was slowly setting, casting a soft golden light that bathed the world in warmth and calm. It was serene here, a tranquility unlike any she had ever known before. This peace was not the kind that simply comes with time or circumstance. No, this peace had been earned, fought for, and secured through blood, sweat, and tears. It was deeply personal, a peace that only someone who had walked through fire could truly understand. Emily Steele had endured loss, hardship, and heartache throughout her life, but through it all she had also gained something far more precious than anything she had ever lost. She had gained the truth, uncompromising and unshakable, the truth that had set her free from the shackles of false accusations. She had gained her freedom, the one thing she had fought so hard for, and she had gained the unwavering loyalty of a partner who had never wavered in his devotion, who had stood by her side through every trial and tribulation, never once faltering. The night began to fall and the stars slowly emerged, twinkling brightly above her. Emily felt a quiet certainty deep in her soul. Max, the man who had given everything to help her, who had been her rock when she needed it most, would never truly be gone. No matter where life took her from here, he would always be with her. His spirit would live on in her heart, in the cherished memories they had shared, and in every step she took from this moment forward, guiding her, comforting her, and giving her the strength to keep moving ahead. The wind, soft and gentle, rustled through the leaves of the trees around her, its whispers carrying with it the memory of a loyal friend, a protector, and a hero who had never once let her down. In the profound stillness of the night, Emily softly whispered into the quiet, her voice barely audible but full of deep emotion, "Thank you, Max. Rest well. You've earned it." As the final note of taps echoed through the air, Emily took one last look at the horizon, a faint smile on her lips as she whispered her farewell. The past was behind her now, but the journey of her life was far from over. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing she had the strength and the truth on her side. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more exciting stories. Stay tuned for the more chapters, where new adventures await and heroes continue to rise in the most unexpected of places. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.